Hello. How many of you guys are here last year? No. Okay, one. Because I'm pretty much reusing like 80% of the slides last year. I don't think the industry have too much updates. But there's also a lot of interesting things I want to share because there's many things that I have the same value and have some the same opinion, but I feel like now it's more clear, much more clear about geopolitics, about network state, about our relationship, crypto industry, and eventually the network state, right? So here a little bit of background about me. That was my old photo in high school. I founded Mask around 2016, 2017, and then eventually become a token project. We have a venture arm. We're kind of one of the first entity that bring the word decentralized social around 2016, 2017. And my original idea is definitely not about social network. In my ideas, like social is about society, right? So the fundamental is from 1996, John Peter Barron. He was the co-founder of Electronic Frontier Foundation. If you're interested, EFF sued the U.S. government, especially the Department of Defense, in the late 90s, and went to the circuit court. That's the first crypto war, and eventually that time make the circuit court kind of agree that first coded speech. Second, the Department of Defense and whatever three-letter agency in the U.S. should not have power for controlling your import and export for cryptographic knowledge. So what he said in 1996, exactly 30 years ago, is the governments of the industrialized world, your weary giants of flesh and steel, I come from cyberspace, the new home of mine. On behalf of the future, I ask you of the past to leave us alone. You are not welcome among us. You have no sovereignty where we gather. This is ambitious, and I think we're definitely not really close to that. But this is the original idea. Not only the network state, not only Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I think everything involved after 1996. This is the original idea of gaining an independent cyberspace, right? But okay, what is the independent cyberspace? What is a society, right? So we have to think about it. There's a lot of things happened in the past 30 years. There's a lot of battles, as I mentioned. There's crypto war. There's digital civil war. We can argue that the past 4 year Biden administration is also having a war against crypto industry, but that's like way less years compared to 90s. 90s, like people, FBI do arrest you and they put you in jail, right? So it's very different. And there's a lot of people died and people not able to enter the U.S. or anymore. Like Edward Snowden not able to enter the U.S. or and having fun in Russia now. Aaron Schwartz killed himself because the FBI planned him in the MIT story. If you're interested, there's a really cool documentary called The Internet's Envoy. Aaron Schwartz, he's the co-founder of Reddit and RSS. So there's many story behind that. But the mission is very clear that through the technology and through different layers of technology and involvement and evolution, eventually we're creating and we're mimicking the states. We are mimicking a space that belongs to the new generation, belongs to the Siberian, right? That's the ultimate goal is very clear. And that reminds me some history stuff, right? So, and especially I think related to most of the places outside of the European world, because most of the new world today are used to be colonized, right? Including Korea. This reminds me of the East India Company and the internet giants, right? So basically, what's going on is like when people just found out like when European found out Asia and the new world, the America, they don't feel that's a sovereign space. They're like, hey, there's a bunch of people there. Hey, there's gold and silver there. There's whatever there. Let's just colonize them. Okay, we just form different companies and just do best things and we make money. And they IPO. East Indian Company is an IPO company in the UK. Very very cool. You can do the pump and dump. You can do their meme stock. And the stage is also very same for the cyberspace. At the first, like people don't think it's It's a serious thing in the 90s. There's no mainstream coming into the cyberspace post 2000. Before the dot-com bomb, there's dot-com bubble. There's not really too much serious money. Then suddenly people think, oh, okay, this is something very important. We should all get in. So let's say East India Company. There's different version of East India Company. There's the British version. There's like Spanish version. So it's the same thing for like East Cyber Company, West Cyberspace Company, right? There's like say Facebook and Tencent. Like Facebook is probably like Facebook is the U.S. Like cyberspace colonization company, and like TikTok and Tencent is the Chinese cyberspace colonization conglomerate. That's pretty much the same thing. They're not acting in behalf of the nation state, but they're just like they have to be listened to the nation state in some way, and there's no independence entity before Bitcoin. There's no independent entity before Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's no one big enough to say, hey, there's some kind of like conglomerate, some kind of like gathering of people that really don't have any motherland, have no nation state connections. And stage two is the past. Stage three is we are right now. I would say from the beginning of the Bitcoin, 2008 till now, it's sadly it's almost 2 decades. There's many things happen, and we're still there. There's my own story about social network. I was an activist. But back to the topic, like, okay, what's going on with the network state? And if we are building that, clearly Balaj, which is also one of my shareholders back in the days, he don't have a way, right? He just say, hey, okay, network state, cool. We have a school in Malaysia. Okay, what's the 1, 2, 3 step? No, I don't know. He don't know, and he don't really have an answer. But I think Julian Assange have a very clear answer. Unfortunately, he's also one of the people who cannot enter the U.S. or anymore. This is his book in 2012. So almost 20 years after John Peter Barron released the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace, like right after, almost 20 years after EFF sued the U.S. government, Julian Assange wrote a book called Cypherpunk, Freedom of the Future of Internet. So our task is to secure self-determination where we can, to hold back the coming dystopia where we cannot, which is the sovereignty, right? And we have to have the self-determination of different infrastructure in the industry. So money is one. We kind of like have, I think like 80 to 90%, we have the self-deterministic of the money, no matter you like it or not, from Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoin, DeFi, there's different layers, kind of like finish 80 to 90%. How about communication? Well, we certainly don't have anything. We have Telegram, we have Signal, which honestly, it's not self-deterministic. The will still get arrested, right? So, okay, how to do that? We are almost finished, and we have almost finished the first several part, like on company, on community, on currency, and then there's methodologies we need to mobilize people, and that's something when I realized around 2016, which is 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I think I contribute only little to the industry. Only 10 years ago, I realized it's 20 years anniversary for the publication of the Declaration of Independence of the Cyberspace. We still have no sovereignty at all for how to mobilize people, how to mimic the society in the cyberspace. So that comes to all our experiments, like all our experiments of digital citizenship and governance, zero knowledge. And that actually reminds me Dr. Sun Yat-sen's story. If you understand the modern Chinese history, he's the first one ever tried to use the Dao methodology to overthrow the Qing dynasty, overthrow the monarchies. Basically, he formed a lot of fake ICO project, and he did 10 stupid revolution coin, and eventually his success took like 15 years. That's also first generation of NFT in 1895, which when people cannot publish newspaper, when you publish newspaper and people just copy it and just take part of it and prove their identity if they have like Minpao, which is the revolutionary newspaper. It's kind of like DID, and also it's cool to show off, like, hey, people, I'm in again, right? So it's definitely better than cyber monkeys, which they don't prove anything. It's just only prove that you have the same taste of NBA player. We have all these things, and then here comes to Lens. So with all this in mind, Mask and us, the team, has been working in this news for now it's 10 years anniversary. It's a decade. So this year, early this year, January, we announced that we are now the new steward of Lens. We are now taking control and moving that forward. I think it's very important, not only Lens, but also, like, say, Farcaster, Blue Sky. And I'm here to say why it's important. It's not because social file or decentralized social, whatever. It is the fundamental and important infra for building a society. It's only by building a society you can creating a political agenda, a political movement, and a party, eventually a network state. And I think that's something smart people always know. I think people like Balaj, people like Andreessen, like big funds, they do have, like Peter Thiel, they do know, but it's only a few people dare to say that out loudly and dare to put their own money in that. So for Lens, fortunately, we are not only doing this alone. We still have, like, Stanley from Avi helping in. Many people are endorsing us, and thanks to Vitalik, he's a daily active user for Firefly. Firefly is also our flagship app. If you're interested, you can go to firefly.social. It basically integrates everything in one. So the key is, first, you need to let the user understand they're not a pure citizen of the traditional state anymore, right? You still hold traditional state's passport, like traditional nation state passport. But once you get into these things, we're gonna issue you IDs, we're gonna issue DID, issue NFTs, not in the ways of speculation, but in the ways of, like, bringing you self-identification of a new community. Eventually that leads to a new group of people. They can be digital nomad, it can be crypto degen, but that's just the beginning. Then we have this cultural layer. It's also Orb and Matters, which Orb we acquired a little bit last year. It's an amazing team from Helsinki, Finland, and they managed to do it very well. There's a small community that people don't feel they're from any country. They just feel like they belong here. That's cool. And then the intelligence layer is Web3.bio. Again, we did it because there's so many people, there's so many companies shutting down. I think this year and last year, there's around 20 to 100 important and have really good user acquisitions, protocols and projects shutting down. There's no one care about their user graph and social graph. And Web3.bio is a nonprofit entity that we initiate, and we're glad to have someone like ENS give us some grant to provide the continuous operation. If you're interested, go to Web3.bio and search Vitalik.eth or Suji and.eth. You'll be amazed. There's around 80 million data and 80 million identities ever indexes. So this 80 million, and that's address, by the way. And if we say, like, real human, I guess 5 to 6 million. And these are the population of network state. These are how large. This is how large network state is. It is around 1/10 of the size of Korea. South Korea, and it's around the similar size of Singapore. It's around like 1 of 20 size of Japan, but this is very important. If we treat this as a small nation state, it's already gaining the momentum. It's already solved the 0 to 1 problem. The next problem is, like, how can we scale it? How can we have more people, more like a dual citizenship people, like both network state and nation state citizen, and they feel they're super attached. If you went to every crypto conference, you might become like one of these, like, network state Siberian, right? So that's what we do as well. And Lens, I think last few years, Lens have other really cool stuff. I don't want to repeat that, but since we kind of join in, we want this to become the universal layer for social message. And there's no one. There's no censorship. There's no way to ban you. There's no way, like, you don't need to worry about Nikita of Twitter. You don't need to worry about Elon or Trump or whatever. It has to be completely neutral. So Lens have its own blockchain, EVM compatible, called Lens Chain. but it's all open source. It's all welcome to build. Again, go to lens.xyz if you're interested. It's around like 1 few million people already there. And then eventually, that's the goal of the future of the future of network state, that we are providing not only the ideology but also the detail. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 step towards building a society, towards building a state. And that's again a quote from John Peter Barrow from 1996, exactly 3 decades ago. I believe we will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace, made to be more humane and fair than the words your governments ever made before. All right, thank you. Follow me on Twitter and email. Yeah.